Now is the turn for the second speaker for this session. We have Miss Sara, we have Sra.ª CHIESURA here. And right now, she is the chief curator of the Chinese collection in the British Museum. Is it called British Museum?
British Library. It was the British Museum, actually.
So you can see how old-fashioned I am. You know, in those days, we all called it BM, British Museum, and then of course library is part of the museum.
Yes.
So we welcome you to Macau, Sara.
Thank you.
And I understand that Sara is originally from Italy, and also she worked in Canton, Guangzhou, as well as Dalian. So I'm sure that apart from speaking very fluent Putonghua, she can also speak some Cantonese.
No, I don't speak any. I just can say Ngoi and Nei Hao. Nei Hao.
That is good enough. Let me ask if anybody here who can speak Italian, the equivalent of Ngoi and Nei Hao. Any volunteer here? Okay, so somebody, can you stand up and show that?
Grazie, yes.
And then, how about the second one? Nei hao.
Ciao.
Ciao. Okay.
Ciao.
So everybody, ciao. Ciao. So let's welcome Sara.
Thank you.
Please start your presentation.
Thank you very much. All right, so yes, despite the fact that I am Italian, I work in London now for the British Library. And today I wanted to present to you a project we did on our collection of oracle bones, which was also an international cooperation project because we worked a lot with the National Library of China in Beijing. So, well, first of all, a couple of words about my institution, the British Library, which is the National Library of United Kingdom. It's the largest library in the world by number of items catalogued. I think the largest library in the world is still the Library of Congress in Washington. It's a legal deposit library, which means that every item which is published in UK and in Ireland and in Northern Ireland, one copy goes directly to the library. And interestingly, we used to have a Hong Kong deposit library, and therefore I have a lot of material from Hong Kong from those times when every item published in Hong Kong was going, one copy was going to London as well. We have a collection of about 170 million items, and we detached from the British Museum in 1972, so we are quite recent as an independent institution because before we were part of the British Museum collections. But even if we are quite a recent institution, we have quite an important historical collection. The Chinese collections in the British Library are composed by about 120,000 items, and the earliest acquisitions of the collections were made by that guy that you see on the top right, which is Sir Hans Sloane, which is one of the founders of the British Museum, and he was one of the collectors of the earliest Chinese material that we have in the library. Another important person for the British Library Chinese collection is Sir Aurel Stein, which collected material from Dunhuang, and now we are digitizing all the material we have from Dunhuang as part of our international Dunhuang project, and you can see the Diamond Sutra frontispiece at the bottom in the center. Then in the right you can see the Yongle Tadian. We have 24 volumes in the British Library that recently we digitized them all in cooperation with the National Library of China Press, and now they are all accessible online in our website, and the National Library of China Press is doing the facsimiles copies. We also have material in Manchu, in Mongolia, and in Naxi, and some other minor languages. So the project about the oracle bones was funded by our Department of Culture, Media and Sports for the financial year 2015-2016. And basically we received 62.5K each, together with the V&A, the Tate and the British Museum. And I was told by my Ministry of Culture to use that money to do something for enable more access to our collection internationally, and also to foster a cooperation activity with institutional partners in China. Therefore, I've chosen to do something about the oracle bones. Why? Because the oracle bones are the oldest items in the British Library. They're obviously 3,000 years old. They're obviously very specific in terms of a library holding, because they are more like a museum kind of item. And therefore, for me, it's very challenging to manage the oracle bones, to catalog them, to find a proper storage for them, to digitize them, and to do all these things is really, you really need specific skills. You know, even for transporting them from the basement to the reading room, how can you do it? They're not books. So we really needed to study them more in order to find more ways to treat them properly. We have more than 480 oracle bones in the British Library. They were collected by two missionaries, Colling and Chalfant. One was British, one was American, and they entered the British Museum collections in 1911. So we decided to cooperate with the National Library of China for this project, obviously because they are our major partner in the area. We are the two national libraries of UK and of China. Therefore, also we signed a memorandum of understanding in 2015, which included the work on the oracle bones. And also we asked them to cooperate with us because they have a very extensive oracle bones collection, and they recently did a proper catalog on them, did a digitization work on them, and they also saw a very nice exhibition on the oracle bones they did last year. So they were my first and final choice. This is part of the presentation that Dr. Jean Fourey gave in London last year, when he presented a little bit to us the oracle bones and their collections, the history of the collection. He showed us how they store the bones. They have a brilliant online catalog that you can search also by subject. And this is the exhibition they did last year in Beijing, which I was lucky enough to see. And therefore, our Oracle Bones project had three main objectives. The first one, to enable strong and long-term skill exchange with our partner institution. The second one was to increase visibility of the Oracle Bones to the public. And the third one was to increase the awareness and of the knowledge of the collection to us. You know, the more I was working with my colleagues in Beijing, the more I was learning about the collection, and my colleagues were learning about the collection. So this was a real knowledge exchange. So the project was divided into two strands. One was conservation and technical strand, to enable our conservation center library assistants to work better on the bones and to learn about how they could storage them, how they could exhibit them. And the second strand was the research strand to really enhance our knowledge about the collection. Obviously, the more you know how to conserve them, the more knowledge you can have of the items, and vice versa. The more you know about the items you are dealing with, the better you know how to conserve them. So obviously they are interconnected. What we did was to digitize them all in 2D, and we created 484 catalog records. So obviously the first benefit was that people all over the world were able to see our collection for free. They are open access on the British Library website. Then we invited one of the preventive conservators and the exhibition manager of the National Library of China to come to London for a workshop about possible storage techniques with our conservation center colleagues. This was absolutely amazing, and actually we came up, our London colleagues and our Beijing colleagues came up with two very similar solutions that you see on the bottom left and bottom center. Then we sent to Beijing two of our library conservators to learn the new techniques they are using in Beijing about how to preserve and restore Chinese items. They visited the conservation center in Beijing and they held a workshop. We also organized an exhibition which was called Beyond Paper, 3,000 Years of Chinese Writing. Obviously to make the London public aware of these items, because obviously the British Library is the Library of United Kingdom, and therefore the public thinks about Shakespeare, thinks about the Magna Carta, but obviously I wanted to improve the awareness of the East Asian collection, and in particular the Chinese collection, to the London public. So we held this free exhibition in our Free Treasures Gallery, and also we invited Michael Wood, who is a BBC broadcaster, to film the oracle bones in our storage, and then our oracle bones were part of a BBC series about the history of China. So we really wanted to improve the visibility of the items. We also wrote some blog posts about many different aspects of the bones. We invited our researchers to write something about the fakes we have, because we have also oracle bones with added scripts which were added in the 20th century, and so they were fake. Also, we asked an astronomer to help us to date a lunar eclipse which is on a bone. So it was very multi-subject and multidisciplinary. And finally, we really wanted to use digital technologies, so we did some 3D imaging of 5 of our bones. So, and they are on our website. So if you go to the British Library website, you search for oracle bones, you will find this 3D imaging that you can basically spin and rotate, so you can see the bone in its actual total shape. And also we did some microcystis scanning at the Natural History Museum. The microcystis scanning is a new technology which is also used in medical research. It's an X-ray, it's a 3D X-ray, so basically you can see what's inside the bone. And basically, this is, can we start this video? Yes? No? Yes. So this is what you can see from the microcystis scanning. They are slices from above of the bone, and here you can see the top of the tissue of the bone, and then you will see, the more you go down with the X-ray scanning, you will begin to see the pit marks made from the hot sticks that were used to crack the bones. And you can clearly see also some, well, this is a very scientific thing, but you can see that the bone tissue structure is changing. And we really do hope that these microcystis scans will help researchers to determine more specifically which kind of pits were using for the marks and how much heat they could apply to the bones. So we really do hope that, I mean, we are providing this to researchers, but we really think that we can get something out of it. And this was the first time that microcystis scanning was done on the oracle bones. Okay. Okay, and then finally, we invited 2 researchers from the NLC to see our bones collection. And on the 9th of March, we did a round table about oracle bones studies in UK. So we invited the National Library of China colleagues, but also colleagues from the University of Edinburgh, Cambridge University Library, the British Museum, and so on, University of Oxford. So we invited everyone in UK with oracle bones collections in order to share ideas. And basically, everything we did, it's obviously done in the framework of living knowledge, which is our British Library strategy, which is making our intellectual heritage accessible to everyone for research, inspiration, and enjoyment. So obviously, when I was working on this project, I was thinking, you know, what can I do to make these resources accessible to as much people as I can, and how can I make this project relevant for researchers, and how can I make this project sustainable, but also which leaves something for the future. And in this case, you have a permanent access online to our collection of oracle bones, but also the relationship we built with the National Library of China is something that will go beyond this project. And then we organized a final roundtable at the Tate Britain with many partners from China invited, and with 4 panel discussions, one on collections, one on funding, one on touring exhibition, and one on training, which went really, really well. And obviously, the future steps would be analyze the Microcystis scans results and also do the rehousing, which we are doing now, because until now the bones are stored in some cases which are quite heavy and not very stable, I would say. And as a final thing, I leave you with a 5 minutes video about some of the things we did.
A book which highlights a lot of the treasures that you've probably seen this morning.
As it's closest to the original paper and therefore is most sympathetic and flexible.
非常近，分散在3个地方，这些。
When you get bone samples like this, you will image them at somewhere about 180 kV, maybe 200 micrograms. Oh, look at that. Fantastic.
What's so interesting about the bones, when you look at them, is they're about divination, but they're trying to access the ancestors. So they're about the ancestors. and they're about ritual, and they're about the relationship of human beings to the cosmos and the eternal order of the heavens, if you like. So a lot of the themes that run right the way through Chinese history are there, right at the beginning in the first recording on the oracle bones.
Okay. Well, I leave you with my contact and the website, the link of our website and our blog. My email is sara.chiesura@bl.uk. If anybody wants to know more about this project, please do write me. I'm very pleased to be here today, and you know, without cooperation, nothing could be done. In my case, without the support from the NLC, we could have never done such a great project with such an international resonance. So I'm very happy to be here today to share more knowledge and more interesting projects with you. And you are all invited always to London to see the Chinese collections and to discuss any project you would like to start with us. Thank you very much.